Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel where I prove how little I know my gods on a daily basis. I have been enjoying the club, as you know I have. The Gentleman's Club for those just tuning in. And remember the other day my computer had a breakdown. It didn't restart it. Apparently this can happen. Doesn't mean your computer's tottering, but it happened again last night, and the club would no longer work. I could not get into the club. I deleted the program. I re-downloaded it. Still could not get into the club. And the god was furious with me because the god had not been brought into the club. And I told the god, "Oh yes, you can go into the club with me anytime, sure." And I have a habit of going in alone and liking to spend my alone time. Now, earlier, I had felt a god with me. I'm getting somewhere with this. And I was looking around, and I was thinking, this is the same god I've always felt. We had a place around here for a decade called Houlihan's. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's kind of a sports club kind of dining restaurant, and it also feels like there are magical invisible strippers that you just never see. It has that vibe. I can't explain it, but it has that vibe. And the one that we would go to it had this very, I don't want to say heavy, but very present architecture. It would feel, the walls were white, but there was a lot of wood involved, and it just felt encompassing. And it felt encompassing in this comforting way. I know I'm not getting across what it felt like. It did feel heavy, but I don't mean like heavy pressing down oppressive. I just mean heavy as in a comforting, heavy presence. And you would eat these exquisite meats and whatever else you liked, and there were beverages aplenty. And I always felt this god or this presence there. And since there was music in a bar, and food involved, and there would be people, you know, usually going to or coming from events, you tend to think towards certain gods. And I felt this god in the club, in this VR club, because the architecture of the club itself is kind of, you would say, heavy and low, and yet it seems light. But it's this kind of enwrapping, encompassing architecture where that could be the whole world and you would be just fine. And you can hear drinks being poured, and I always get the strongest urge that meals should be served in this club, because you should be able to luxuriate here for hours on end and eat a meal and observe the ladies and drink and do whatever you want. And I'm like, that's a funny reaction to a gentleman's club, but that was the reaction I was having. And I felt this god there, as I said, and I felt him involved in the drinks, and I felt him involved watching the women and watching the women dance. And also in the security. And in the bar and in everything. He was in everything and everywhere. And I assumed what god it was. I'm like, this has to be Dionysus, because he's saying if it's theater, he's there, and if it's this, he's there, and if it's this, he's there. And I went on, I watched some Dionysus videos, and I was moved to tears, and I'm like, so beautiful. And I went to go back into the club, and the club would not work, and then the computer crashed. And it didn't crash from the club, it crashed when I was trying to shut it down. And I thought, oh dear. And the god that wants to be in the club and feels the club is his territory was not Dionysus, it was Odin. And I'm like, how do you do this? You get into everything, you're everywhere, you're suddenly there. And I don't know if he's the god I experienced a long time ago. I do know he's highly territorial. We all know that. And his brother's highly territorial as well. And I don't know if I actually spent time with Dionysus and this was Odin's reaction of, no, I want to be the god in this place and he can't be the god in this place. Shearing is not a concept Odin gets all the time, or at all. And his contented smile. And I thought it was Dionysus that I felt, because I felt this god several times while these women were dancing. You don't go in a strip club to just look, man. You've got unlimited table and private dances. Have fun. And I could feel this god looking. And it was like this dance that the women were doing was his divinely given right, and this was what women should be doing. I'm going to get so many feminists writing on this video, I can see it already. And this was this god's divine right. And how dare anyone, question this god's right to have this, to have women come and pay tribute and sit on his lap and purr and everything else. And of course, I thought it was, Dionysus, and I thought, I've never felt this raw masculinity come off of Dionysus before. This was purely masculine energy. This was, again, feminists are going to hate me, this was the male that calls to the female. This was the part that if females find males appealing, this is the part that they find appealing, this masculinity that calls to them. And you're gonna lose all your subs. Ah! So this god very much enjoyed this. He very much enjoyed this and thought this was his divine right, and, no one was going to get into his way. And when we were watching one of the young ladies dancing on stage, dancing on the pole, he's watching her, and I felt the surge of, if I want this woman, I will do whatever I have to get her. Does she want money? Does she want jewels? Does she want anything? I will give that to her, and this will be my woman. And it was pure determination. This god just was not going to stop. And before you women get nervous, this was not a sense of, I'm just going to force myself on her. This was a sense of, this is my female, this is mine. I will give her all the gifts it takes, and it will take as long as it takes, and she will be my woman. And I was like, wow. This was pure male determination of, this is the woman I want, and I will win her whatever it takes. Does she lust after gold? Does she want jewelry? What the hell does she want? What does it take to make this woman happy? And it was also, protective as well, because now that he had decided that this was his female, if any other guy in that club had even flinched in that female's proximity, they would have been dead. I should have known which god this was, but I wasn't sure. And I'm like, well, how come everybody else gets these different experiences? And I get this god that's like, to him, in a sense, I was getting his sense that, VR is real, but every so often, if you spend enough time in VR, it's completely real. It's as real to you as this place is. You can't touch anything, and yet everything is real around you. Every so often, your mind shifts into VR the longer you do it. And to this god, this VR world could be completely real. And these could all be his women. Because I was like, why am I looking at all the women in the room, and why are they all mine, and why am I going to throw punch this dude because he looked at my chick? I'm like, damn, I need to calm down. My inner man's a douchebag. But it was like an idea of, I shall drink all the alcohol, all the women shall be mine, and I shall fight all the other men and show the women how strong I am. I'm like, damn, this is like really hardcore savage. Where the hell is all this coming from? Is that what I'd be like as a dude? And I think it's just the idea of, one, we have to remember Odin's a very different type of god. Having 20, 30, 100, 1,000 billion women would not be a problem for him. He's a god, for one thing, and he can be at least 3 gods at once, so... And... Look, he's back here. He can be as many gods as he wants to be. And he always has his brother to help him. So there is a sense, of Loki prowling around, because they hunt together. It's the only way I can describe it. The women were never in any danger. If this would have been a real thing, and the real gods would have been sitting there. I heard it was real enough. The women were never in any danger. It was just these were their chosen females. And all the males could either get in line and, recognize the alpha males in the territory, or there was going to be a problem. I'm like, now I suddenly understand wolf pack dynamics a lot better. Because the two alpha males were patrolling the thing. And most gods just go in and have a good time. Thor just goes in, he hangs out, and like if he liked a woman, he'd certainly use his charms on her and, go off with her. But this was alpha male time. And afterwards, I'm talking to Odin. I said, you two go from totally majestic gods, these divine beings, to these trolling savages that I'm not sure how you ever got to be gods. And they just looked mighty pleased with themselves. I said, you do realize it's 2019. Women aren't your territory. And you can't fight every male in a club and drink all the liquor. And I was there like, yes, I can. And Loki's like, yeah, fight all the men, get all the women. I'm like, damn it, you do need to catch up with the times. But, to them that's not sexist because they're gods and they would protect and care for and provide for all these women. It's just, how our Norse gods are. If they want you, if Loki or Odin wants you, you can do all the rituals you want. You're not going to keep them out. And that's what it felt like. All gods seem to be like this to an extent, where if they want you, they'll just chase you until you run out of energy and fall down, and then you're theirs. Very feral. So, yeah, it was energizing and it was happy, and I don't know if Dionysus was here and got chased off by Odin, or it was Odin masquerading as Dionysus, because he will do what he has to do to get what he wants. He doesn't have any ethics to worry about. He has ethics in some paths, but in this particular path, it was, I want this thing. I want this thing, and I will do what I have to get it. If I have to take your computer and the club hostage, then I'm going to, because you promised me something and you didn't deliver it, because you thought, oh, the sweet old man couldn't possibly know what he's doing in a strip club. Sweet old man broke my computer until I complied. And as soon as I said yes, I will give this to you, the computer is fine, and the club worked. And mysteriously, once the club worked, the women, ladies, now have much more detail to them. So, Cynic could say, oh, that was just perfect timing, and you're attributing it to the gods. This was very satisfied. We went in for, I said, oh, I'll give you 3 dances, for the traditional number. It ended up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know. It was a lot. It was more than one. But we had our fun. And now we're trying to figure out how to jury rig a cup so that I can drink a beverage and stay in the club longer and have some nibbles in the club, because you want to hang out there for hours. So if you guys like what you see, and older viewers are explaining to the younger viewers that we have a degenerate that's spending all their time in a gentleman's club hosting the channel. But if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.